Welcome back to Sambo's Stop Motors, and today we're building a barn. So we're actually not going to be building a barn, especially not a full-size barn and not even a small barn. But I did mention that we're going to be working on this project, building a barn, pretty much a replica of this one in 1/64 scale. So today we're going to, this is just kind of the introduction to that, and I'm just going to talk about how I measure the barn to scale it down. So let's take a look. So I'm not actually going to measure the whole barn. This barn is my grandparents' barn, and it is really close to our house, so I can just come and take measurements whenever I want of it. So for the sake of the video, I'm going to show you the main parts, and then what I do to get those. In real life, I'll just come out and measure the base whenever I need something. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is just measure the overall length of it, or width. This is the biggest measurement. My tape measure isn't big enough, so we're just going to go and go. The overall length from here to back there is 62 feet. Yeah, that's where we run into the problem. This is an old bank barn, Pennsylvania bank barn. It's built on a hill so that you can go in underneath and go in on top, and that is what is unique about them. The problem is it's hard to measure the width because I can't reach that. So I measured that inside, and that is 39 feet. Okay, so we're under the floor bay now. And I'm measuring these beams. The width, I'm measuring the width, and the height, and the space in between. All this stuff is going to give me an idea of how to build the beam, what size to cut it out, how far to put them apart, and that'll show me the length of the barn. So underneath the barn, so we have all these beams and stuff, and we have this big beam in here that I also measured, and I also spaced that in between that beam and the outside, and that beam in the back, and that'll give me the size of the basement or the cellar of the barn, and that's about all I needed there. I also measured, if we go here, the width of this wall, which is pretty impressive. That looks like it's almost 2 feet of rock there, so that's pretty impressive. So I also take pictures of all of this so I can build it to scale and what it looks like, and that's about it. The bottom of the barn probably won't be this detailed, but I still take pictures anyways. Alright, so now I'm going to, now that we're in the barn, I'm going to look at all these beams. In the long run, I'm going to measure each one out and take pictures and measure their placement and everything, and the big thing is like this wall behind me. We'll show you a better picture of that later. Just to take pictures so I can roughly scale down what that's going to look like, and just everything. And yes, this is a 2-man outhouse seat. This is a better picture. So just these uprights, diagonals. I'm going to measure the width, thickness, height. Maybe even the angle that those are at, and then that'll get us a pretty good idea. Eventually, I will even measure the width of the boards and cut those out. I might not even be too concerned about that, just to get a rough idea. All right, the last thing we have to do is measure the top, the height to the peak, and that angle. And honestly, I didn't figure out how to do that yet, but I will, and I'll let you know how I do that. And if you have any ideas, let me know as well. Now that we got all the measurements, we're gonna go home and scale it down. When I am measuring the barn out, I put all my measurements into my phone just on a note. I just write them down so they make sense for me, such as the main beam, I know that that's the one. Underneath, I know side to side what that means, all that kind of stuff. So you have to do it so it makes sense to you. I take all my measurements in feet and inches just because it's easy to see 60 feet, you know. But then I do scale that down to centimeters and meters. I just type that into Google. I say 62 feet in centimeters. That gives me 1,889.76 centimeters. Then I take that into the calculator, and then I divide that by 64. It's easier, I found, to work with millimeters and centimeters than working with the fractions of an inch, especially when they get that small. You might be dealing with 30 seconds and 64s. Once we get to the paper then, and we get our scale. I just write it down on a piece of paper. I say rough. It is, and ignore that half scale. I write this down as it makes sense to me. So I have the floor beams, and then I say the dimensions of them. It might not make sense to everybody. You just have to make it make sense to you. So that's my notes. Then I have a piece of cardboard here I drew out, and this is what it's going to be in 1/64 scale. So there's little lines at the end there. That's the forebay. That's how big the forebay will be. On the top of the barn, you can actually, that whole entire square, you can you could park a tractor on. So that's what a tractor looks like next to it. And so I just do this before I go ahead and build anything, just so I can get a rough idea and look and lay it out. So I'm not just going off of my head, because I want this to turn out well. So I'm going to do some planning, which I don't usually do. So just to show you in a minute here how we scale stuff down, I just take a measurement, and then we're going to just take that into millimeters, and then use our ruler there and mark that down. And that's really all that has. So I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to subscribe, because there'll be more videos about building this barn. Also, like it if you enjoyed it. I'd really appreciate that. And I think that's about all for me. The next video of this barn will be cutting out some lumber, roughly. And no, this video is not sponsored by Lancaster Ford Tractor, especially because they do not exist anymore. So anyways, thanks for stopping by.